Good morning. Today is Friday, September 19th, 2025. I am Eric Feaster, Professional Development Coordinator for the Maryland Department of Health's Developmental Disabilities Administration. We welcome you to today's webinar, Amendment 2025 Self-Directed Services Update. If you would like to use closed captioning so you can read what is being said, click this button. Sometimes the transcription is not exact, but it's pretty close. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode and your mics and cameras are turned off. Today's presentation is available in the handouts section. Click here where you see the paperclip to download the presentation. If you have a question you would like us to read and answer, click here where you see the question mark to add your question. Before beginning our meeting, we want to ensure civility for all meetings. The free expression of diverse viewpoints is a fundamental value of our group. This freedom carries the responsibility to engage respectfully, which means treating one another with dignity and respect in good faith. Uncivil behavior, disruptive conduct, abusive language, threats, or harassment will not be tolerated and may lead to being excused from the meeting. Thank you for helping keep this productive and comfortable for everyone. And now I'd like to introduce Rhonda Workman, Director of Federal Programs, to begin today's webinar. Good morning, Rhonda.
Good morning, Eric. If you could go to the welcome slide. One more slide, please. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rhonda Workman. If you can go back a slide, please. Thank you. Good morning again. My name is Rhonda Workman. I'm the Director of Federal Programs. And on behalf of the Developmental Disabilities Administration, I want to welcome you to DDA's Waiver Amendment 2025 Self-Directed Services Updates webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to share information in plain language about the DDA-operated Medicaid Waiver Amendment. The DDA is also offering more webinars to explain upcoming changes related to the Waiver Amendment and answer questions. These webinars are for people receiving services, families, coordinators of community services, providers, and anyone else that would like to learn more. Next slide, please. This slide is showing our agenda for the webinar today. Christy Culbreth, DDA's Division Chief of Self-Directed Services, will first start with a short overview of self-directed services. We will then share information related to the new self-directed services orientation. We will share updates related to some of our services, including the new day-to-day administrative support service. Day-to-day administrative supports were updated based on the fiscal year 2026 budget bill. The hours were capped at 10 hours per month to allow as many participants as possible to access this service without going over what was appropriated or provided the funding to DDA. Other individual and family-directed goods and services were updated as per the Budget, Reconciliation, and Finance Act of 2025. This amendment reestablishes the $5,000 limit on other goods and services. We will also share additional updates related to allowable and not allowable goods and service items, and we will also share reasonable and customary goods and service costs. Christy then will talk about some updates related to support broker services. We will also talk about employee benefits and reasonable and customary standards. We will then next talk about service provider updates, and we'll review current and updated standards for using relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians for providing waiver services. We'll talk about qualifications to providers, and we'll also review updates to the self-directed services forms. We will also share information about when people will be removed from the self-directed service model. After each section, we will pause to answer a few questions in the question box and take a couple of live questions specific to the topic we just shared. At the conclusion of our presentation, we will also provide additional time for questions and public comment. To support all participants' opportunities to ask a question, when called on, each person can ask one question. Additional questions can be asked by submitting in the question box or raising your hand again. I'm now going to turn it over to Christy. Good morning, Christy. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Rhonda, and good morning, everyone. As Rhonda mentioned, my name is Christy Colbreth, and I am the DDA's Division Chief of Self-Directed Services. So to start our time together, I'll begin with an overview of the Self-Directed Services delivery model. The DDA supports participants' right to self-determination, choice, and control to self-direct their services. Self-determination means making your own choices, learning to solve problems, and taking control and responsibility for your life. Practicing self-determination also means you're responsible for making choices and managing your services. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities have the same right to self-determination as all people and are entitled to the freedom, authority, and supports to exercise control over the things in life that are important to them to the degree that they desire. If you choose to self-direct, you must be willing to take on the responsibility of managing your services with employer and budget authority. Employer authority means that you have decision-making rights to hire, train, supervise, and terminate any individuals who provide you services within the waiver program limits. Budget authority means that you have the decision-making authority over how your Medicaid funding is spent within waiver program limits. Next slide. Now we will review the self-directed services orientation. Next slide. The self-directed services orientation is an opportunity for you and your team to learn about the rights and responsibilities of self-directed services in more detail. The orientation helps you and your team to be prepared to begin self-directed services. Next slide. When you are interested in the self-directed service delivery model, you should notify your coordinator of community services. The coordinator of community services will schedule a meeting to complete the orientation with you and any team member you would like there. The orientation meeting may be virtual or in person. The orientation meeting should be scheduled quickly after you request it, within 10 business days. Next slide. The DDA Self-Directed Services Orientation consists of 3 modules of the Self-Directed Services Training Series. Module 1, the Self-Direction Overview. Module 2, the Self-Directed Services Team. And Module 3, Person-Centered Planning. The meeting should be scheduled for at least 2 hours. This time allows you to have breaks between watching the modules. Next slide. During the orientation meeting, your coordinator of community services will play the video of each module. They'll review the orientation frequently asked questions tool. They'll share the contact information for the self-directed services staff in your region so that you and your team may contact them with any other questions you may have. And the coordinator of community services will complete a self-directed services orientation checklist with you to show that the orientation has been complete. Next slide. The orientation checklist notes that all team members that were present at the orientation meeting when the 3 videos were completed during the meeting. It confirms that the frequently asked questions tool was reviewed, and it confirms that the regional office contact information was shared. The orientation checklist must be uploaded into LTSS Maryland. Next slide. The DDA Self-Directed Services Orientation is required for all new applicants interested in self-directing their services and participants using the provider-managed service delivery model interested in self-directing their services. The Self-Directed Services Orientation is not required if you've been self-directing your services before October 6th, 2025. We encourage all stakeholders to review the Self-Directed Services Training Series and learn more about the service delivery model. Next slide. The rollout of the Self-Directed Services Orientation. If you are planning to self-direct between October 6th and December 34th to begin self-directing, you must complete the orientation by March 31st, 2026. Completing the orientation makes sure that you can continue to self-direct your services. If you're planning to start self-directing your services with an annual plan date of January 1st, 2026 or later, you must complete the orientation before beginning self-directed services. As a reminder, if you are self-directing your services right now or before October 6th, you will not need to complete the self-directed services orientation. Next slide. I'll turn it over to Rhonda to facilitate our first section of questions.
Thank you, Christy. So now we're going to look at some of the questions in the question box related to self-directed services orientation. So just a reminder, we're going to be focusing on questions for each topic in that section, and then we can come back to other ones. So Christy, the first question we received, which I think you just shared with us, but could you share again, can you explain whether individuals already in self-directed services need to complete the self-directed service orientation?
Yes, that is a great question. If you are currently self-directing your services or will begin self-directing your services before October 6th, 2025, you do not need to complete the self-directed services orientation. It is available to you. That training series and your coordinator facilitating it is available, but you do not need to.
Great. And so we had another question just to confirm that orientation is only required for new self-directed participants. So as Christy just shared, yes, if you're new to self-direction, then we would like to support you through that orientation process. And that could be you're just starting services. And it could also be you're using the provider managed model and would like to transition to self-directed services. Christy, another question. They just want to confirm that these are reviews of the self-directed modules 1, 2, and 3. These are not quizzes and tests. Can you clarify for us?
That is a really important question. So thank you for whoever asked that. There will be no tests regarding the training. Support brokers might be familiar with the test of the modules because they have to be tested on that curriculum in order to be certified as a support broker. But the orientation is just that. It is a review of the information. It will not test a person on what they've learned at all.
Thank you, Christy. Now we're going to go to the phones. Just a reminder that as we call on you, we will open up your mic. There'll be just a few second pause in between as we open. We're asking that you ask one question related to the topic, which right now is self-directed services orientation. So our first hand is for Rick. Eric, are we able to open Rick's mic?
I got it now. Thank you.
Okay, great.
My question does not necessarily have to do with this, but I'm going to push it anyway because it's not part of your topic at all, but it's something very important to a lot of people in this call is, did this waiver change?
Rick, if you
Did
could
this
please
waiver
hold your
change?
questions till the end so we could stay on our topic, I'd really appreciate that.
Well, I got skipped the last webinar when I tried to ask the question too, but this is very important for a lot of us, and that is simply, did the waiver make any changes to what was able to be reimbursed for health insurance for self-directed?
That is a really great question, Rick, and we actually are going to talk about that today. We have information that I think will address your questions and concerns. So thank you for bringing that up. That's coming up in some upcoming slides. Eric, if we can go to the next caller, Denise.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning. Do you have a question for us related to self-directed services orientation?
I sure do. This is from the sort of planning, referral aspect. So I understand that, Christy said that the self-directed orientation must be completed before beginning self-directed services. Does that mean that the orientation must be completed prior to submitting a plan requesting self-directed services? Or does that just mean that we can request the plan for self-directed services and then do the orientation after it's approved?
What a great question. Yeah, we would like the orientation to be conducted first. Remember, the purpose of the orientation is to provide information and help people to be completely informed about self-direction. And so we would want them to have that before they submit their plan, actually solidifying their choice for self-direction. So thank you so much for that question. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for answering. I appreciate it too.
Yep. All right. Well, I know we've got other questions, but we're going to move to our next section. Please note that we're going to come back to questions at the end, but we want to make sure that we can get through the topics and answer some of those questions. So Eric, if we could go to the next slide, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Yep, again, we have several topics ahead, so I really am thankful that we're sticking to the questions for the topic. We promise we'll get to the information that you want to hear this morning. Now we're going to review day-to-day administrative supports and the updates there. Eric, next slide. Day-to-day administrative supports provide assistance with the participants' household management and scheduling with their medical appointments. Household management means organizing and taking care of essential household needs and repairs for things like scheduling maintenance, such as furnace checks or dishwasher repairs, scheduling snow removal, and scheduling lawn care. Next slide. Day-to-day administrative supports are available to you if you are 18 years of age or older and are unable to do those listed tasks independently. You and your team will work together to figure out what task you need day-to-day administrative supports for and include that information in your person-centered plan. Next slide. Up to 10 hours per month of day-to-day administrative supports are available to you if they are approved in your person-centered plan. This service will be paid through the waiver. It does not need to be covered using cost savings funds. This service is a new drop-down option in the person-centered plan detailed service authorization and will be available on October 6th, 2025. Next slide. Day-to-day administrative supports must meet an outcome and be clearly documented in the participant's person-centered plan. They must be authorized by the DDA or its designee and be linked to a team decision tree form. Next slide. The decision tree form will be required for all person-centered plans requesting day-to-day administrative supports after October 6, 2025. Participants who have day-to-day administrative supports approved in their current person-centered plan will not need to complete the decision tree until the new plan year. The day-to-day administrative supports decision tree form will be reviewed in detail in the forms webinar that we'll have next week. Next slide. Oh, sorry, Eric, one slide back to 27. The day-to-day administrative supports rollout. If you are currently receiving day-to-day administrative supports, you can continue to do so in the way that you are receiving them until your next plan year. The updates to day-to-day administrative supports will apply to you in your next person-centered plan. This is when you will work with your team to complete the decision tree. And this is when the day-to-day administrative supports will be limited to up to 10 hours per month for you. Next slide. Now I'll turn it back over to Rhonda for questions regarding day-to-day administrative supports.
Thank you, Christy. Really appreciate that. So our first question, Christy, you had shared what is covered on day-to-day administrative supports. And so the question was related to that. Can you review and share again with us what the day-to-day administrative supports includes in terms of services?
Absolutely. Erica, if you can go back to slide 22, I'll read that too again. It provides assistance with household management and scheduling medical appointments. Now, household management means scheduling house maintenance and repairs, scheduling snow removal, and scheduling lawn care.
Thank you, Christy. The next question is, for day-to-day administrative supports, they're asking if we can clarify that this means if a participant's currently receiving day-to-day administrative supports in their plan, but it's for tasks not outlined on this slide, can they continue to be paid for those tasks, and must they adhere to the new task? Can you talk a little bit about the transition of that?
Absolutely. So if you're currently receiving day-to-day administrative supports, that when your day-to-day administrator is doing tasks that aren't listed here on this slide that I just read through, they can continue to do so in the way that you've been receiving them until your next plan year. At your next plan year, you'll work with your team to do the decision tree where you'll review these tasks. So they will continue through the end of your plan year.
Thank you, Christy. Now we'll take a couple hands that have been raised. And again, if you could ask your questions specific to day-to-day administrative supports and ask one question, that would be great. Our first caller is Ellen. Good morning, Ellen.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us
great.
today.
I know it takes a second for the microphone to go on. So I have a couple of questions about the day-to-day administrator. I've been told in other DDA webinars that the suggestion is that the CCS and support broker take on many of the tasks that the day-to-day administrators have been doing. My concern about this is that most of our coordinators of community services have multiple clients, are already way overworked, and are certainly not available to take on these tasks. Support brokers who, again, often have multiple clients and have not scheduled in additional hours to do these sorts of tasks, are also more expensive per hour. In fact, way more expensive per hour than the day-to-day administrator position. So I'm not seeing the cost savings here. All I'm seeing is that these tasks aren't going to be done by anybody. So what I'm wondering is, first of all, what your response is to, the suggestion that the CCS and support brokers do this work and the problems involved with that. But additionally, even if you maintain, the restriction of 10 hours a month, which, I personally think makes zero sense for some of the reasons I already cited, why not allow individuals to use cost savings to fund extra hours of day-to-day administrative work?
Yes, so thank you for sharing several questions with us. We really appreciate that. So we appreciate your comments and your thoughts and sharing your perspective. Please note that what we have in the amendment is that there are a variety of other waiver services and supports, to include personal supports, housing supports, support brokers, and coordinators of community services, and other resources that are available to support individuals. And so we really want to ensure and be careful not to duplicate other services and supports that are available. So it's not related to cost saving, it's really related to making sure that the service and in general, we are all walking alongside people that we're supporting to help them to learn, maintain, or support them if they need that directly for those services. So thank you again for sharing your thoughts and your perspective on the day-to-day. We're going to take one more and then go to the next one. So if we could go to Karen Smith, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Karen.
Good morning. I kind of have a similar question. Day-to-day admin was 40 hours per week maximum, and it's a significant reduction of 10 hours per month. I also have grave concerns over large teams that have 10 to 12 staff. Is there an option for an individual who has significant disabilities and is not able to do any of these tasks themselves, for them to receive 2-to-1 supports for personal supports, so that one person can keep the individual safe and be at arm's reach at all times, while the other person assists with the day-to-day tasks that are desperately needed to help run the program in self-direction?
Yeah, so first, thank you for sharing your thoughts and perspective. I'm happy to further connect with you to get a little bit more information related to the situation that you're describing. So again, thank you for sharing that. And again, happy to meet with you to further understand. So Eric, if we can go to the next slide, we're going to start our next topic, and then we'll come back to more questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, now we're going to cover updates to other individual and family directed goods and services. Next slide. Other individual and family directed goods and services are services, activities, or supplies that you cannot get through the Community Pathways Waiver or through other Medicaid services. When we talk about other goods and services, we are talking about the services that do not include recruitment and advertising and day-to-day administrative supports. These are the goods and services that are requested using the individual and family directed goods and services form. Next slide. Starting October 6th, 2025, there is a new yearly limit of $5,000. The limit is for the total amount of other goods and services requested in a year. If something has already been approved before that date, you can keep using it, but new requests after October 6th cannot go over the $5,000 yearly limit. Next slide. We have a few updates to what is allowable. So fees for community programs and activities must be inclusive, which means they are available to people without disabilities. Small kitchen appliances and laundry appliances are available if you live independently. Fitness items may not go over $1,000 per item. Toothbrushes, weight loss programs, and nutritional supplements must be related to your disability, and initial internet services startup cost only. So for a purchase of a modem or other startup fees. Next slide. There are a few updates to what is not allowable. Goods and services that exceed reasonable and customary costs. So we will share in a few slides from now updates to reasonable and customary standards for all of these requests. What is not allowable? Tuition and other fees associated with programs or activities at educational institutions. Any items purchased prior to the approved person-centered plan. This includes items being purchased before the DDA approval of the individual and family directed goods and services form request. So you need a request. The request needs to be approved before a purchase. Goods, services, and equipment and supplies intended for commercial use, such as commercial washers and dryers, are not allowable. Next slide. To continue updates to what is not allowable, diversional or recreational items and activities. These are things used just for fun, like events, sports, games, toys. Goods, services, and equipment and supplies that a household that does not include a person with a disability would pay for as a household expense. Examples include monthly internet services and subscriptions for television services. Programs and activities that are exclusive for people with disabilities, and monthly internet services as per federal rules. Next slide. This is new. The DDA has established reasonable and customary standards for other goods and services. The standards will help make sure that goods and services requests are reviewed in the same way across the DDA regional offices. The standards will also help you know what you are able to request under other goods and services. The standards will apply for requests that are submitted on or after October 6, 2025. Next slide. These next few slides will show reasonable and customary standards for individual and family directed goods and services based on the good or service type. So we'll first review the activities that promote health. So fitness memberships are limited to a dollar amount per month in each regional office that are listed here. Personal training is limited to $75 per hour. Swim lessons up to $500 annually, and horse riding up to $200 per session. Next slide. The next slide is fees for programs and activities that promote socialization or independence. For art classes, a maximum of $65 per 6 to 8 week class or $10 per 1 day class. For music, $50 per 30 minutes. For dance, $20 per 1 day class. Memberships to dance studios should follow the reasonable and customary standards for gym memberships. For sports, $80 per league, for each 6 to 10 weeks. But please note that most Maryland counties have free youth and adult sport leagues. If none are available in the sport of choosing, request up to the maximum may be made. Next slide. The next are small kitchen appliances. For air fryers, a maximum of $75 per item. For microwaves, a maximum of $150 per item. For toaster ovens, a maximum of $75 per item. And for other small kitchen appliances, a maximum of $100 per item. Next slide. For sensory items, for headphones, a maximum of $75 per item. For weighted vest, weighted blankets, and other weighted materials, a maximum of $100 per item. And for other sensory items, a maximum of $25 per item. Next slide. For safety equipment, for protective headgear, a maximum of $200 per item. If safety equipment may be covered under the Maryland Durable Medical Equipment Program, this resource must be used first. For arm guards, a maximum of $25 per item. Again, if safety equipment can be covered using the Maryland Durable Medical Equipment Program, that resource should be used first. For global positioning devices, $50 per item. The maximum for monthly subscriptions for those monitoring systems, $25 per month, and the maximum for all other safety equipment, $50. Next slide. For personal electronic devices, keep in mind that electronic devices might be covered under the waiver service assistive technology. For watches, a maximum of $100 per item. For tablets, a maximum of $150 per item. And for laptops, a maximum of $400 per item. Next slide. For toothbrushes, for manual toothbrushes, a maximum of $2 per toothbrush, up to 4 toothbrushes per year. Or for electric toothbrushes, a maximum of $35 per item. Next slide. For weight loss programs, a maximum of $50 per month. Weight loss programs would not include gym memberships or personal training. That would be included within that section. Next slide. For dental services, for dental anesthesia, a maximum of $3,500 per visit. And for adult dentures, a maximum of $1,000 per set. Next slide. For nutritional consultation and supplements. For consultation, a maximum of $110 per year. If nutritional assessments or consultation can be covered under the Maryland State Plan, private insurance program, or other resources, these resources must be used first. For supplements, cost across supplements cannot exceed $300 per year. Many vitamin deficiencies and other concerns that call for supplements may be covered by health insurance. If nutritional supplements can be covered under the Maryland State Plan, private insurance program, or other resources, these resources must be used first. Next slide. Now I'd like to quickly review the rollout of these updates that I have just shared. Please hear, you can continue to receive all goods and services that were approved through the end of your plan year. Goods and services requests that were submitted before October 6th will be reviewed using the old rules and standards that are currently in our manual. New requests after October 6th cannot go over the $5,000 limit and will be reviewed using these new rules and updated reasonable and customary standards that we have shared today. I'll turn it back over to Rhonda for questions. Next slide, Eric.
Thank you, Christy. So now we're going to review questions specific to other goods and services. So the first question is, could educational classes be covered by this? And Christy, I believe you shared on one of the previous slides that tuition and other fees associated with programs or activities at institutional or educational institutions are not covered. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
The next question we got was related to dental services and wondering if it is allowed, particularly related to dentures. Can you share again with us about dental services that is covered?
Absolutely. So the reason why those goods and services are listed there are that's what's listed in the waiver amendment, both anesthesia and adult dentures. This is because the Maryland State Plan and health insurance cover the cost of dental services outside of that scope. So that's why that's there in that way.
Thank you, Christy. The next question is, will the self-directed services manual be updated with what's allowable and not allowable?
Absolutely. The manual will be updated, and also the form. So the individual and family directed goods and services form that is online right now will be updated so that when you complete it, you see exactly what is allowable and isn't, and what is reasonable and customary. So we'll make that as easy as possible for everyone.
Thank you, Christy. Now we're going to go to a couple people online who have raised their hands. Our first person is Ariel. Good morning.
Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have a question about other goods and services?
I do, but you might think this is, well, I do. The question is really, I just want to clarify. So formerly, we were able to take unallocated funds and use them in IFDGS and day-to-day administration. So I'm understanding what we talked about in this section and the previous section to mean that we can no longer do that for day-to-day administration exceeding 10 hours a month. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and asking your question. Our next hand raised is Anne.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just have a question regarding, I think you had said about shouldn't prepay items until they're like approved, if that's correct, because I just wanted to make sure, like if my son's PCP is approved, if Fellow has, the budget has been approved and uploaded to the dashboard, and now we're, just gathering the information to submit, I guess, to the smart sheet for approval. If, for example, he's in ArtStream, inclusive theater company, should we not prepay it until we get an approval? Because I was going to prepay and then submit the invoice, but should I not do that now? I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne, for sharing that question with us. You should not prepay it, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how those services should be paid for. So thank you for sharing that, and more information will be shared to talk about that. We're going to now go to our next topic, support broker services. And again, we appreciate you adding your questions in the question box and also raising your hand. And we will come back to questions at the end. So Eric, if we can go to the next slide, thank you.
All right, we're going to start our section on support broker services. Next slide. If you self-direct your services, you can choose to use support broker services. A support broker is a person who helps you with the employer side of self-directing your services. They provide information and advice for you to help you make informed decisions related to managing the staff who provide your services and help you stay within your budget. Next slide. As per the current requirements as listed in the Self-Directed Services Manual, you must hire a support broker if a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian is hired and paid to work with you. Or if you choose a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian as your designated representative, and if you hire anyone to provide day-to-day administrative supports to you. Next slide. After October 6, 2025, your support broker will be required to sign and agree to a code of conduct. This will make sure your support broker understands their role and responsibility to provide you with good support services. Support brokers will sign the code of conduct as a part of the updated certification they will receive. Next slide. If your support broker breaks the rules, the DDA may require certain actions. This may include the support broker having to submit a corrective action plan, withholding payments, asking them to pay back funds that were paid incorrectly, suspending them from providing services to participants, or ending their certification. Support brokers have a right to appeal these actions. I will turn it back over to Rhonda for questions regarding support broker services.
Thank you, Christy. So our first question is regarding support broker services. And the person is asking, what's the specific role or set of roles of the broker when they are required for a person self-directing for the reasons that we shared? Can you, I know that
that's a lot of stuff to say. I can share some information. So particularly in our self-directed services training series, there is an entire module related to the support broker role. It is module 5. Keep in mind that our support broker training series, like our manual, like our policy, will be updated with the updates from the waiver amendment. So if you go to that training series now, it is it's not been updated with those updates just yet, but it will be very soon. But that is module 5, the support broker role. I'm going to share a link in the chat that has the self-directed services training series there.
Thank you, Christy. So we have a couple questions about the code of conduct, and people are interested in terms of when it will be available. And they also, another person is interested in knowing if they create it or does it fall under the DDA code of conduct. Can you talk and share a little bit about where the code of conduct currently is and the process we will use for support brokers who are interested in continuing and complete their training?
I can, absolutely. So the support broker code of conduct is not new. It is something that we've had in our manual for about a year. It is contained within module 17 of the self-directed services, I'm sorry, I apologize, module 16 of the self-directed services training series as well. We have updated the Maryland Code of Conduct, support broker code of conduct in the past. Most recently, in our May update of the manual, we had a webinar regarding those updated changes. We received a lot of feedback from stakeholders, including support brokers, on that. But this code of conduct has not been updated since, and it will not be updated before support brokers have to sign and adhere to it. So if you are a support broker today, you can go onto the self-directed services manual and review the code of conduct today.
Thank you, Christy. Let's take a couple questions. We have Irene. Irene, if you could share one question related to support broker services. Thank you.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are. Good morning,
Okay,
Irene.
great. Thank you. Good morning. I know one of the things that among the support brokers that we've discussed is the need for other vendors who participate or who provide services in self-directions, also having a code of conduct. It does seem like there's a lot of focus on the support brokers having a code of conduct, but we are aware, and many of us have reported on issues where other vendors have not provided services ethically.
I can answer that, Rhonda.
Sure.
So just keep in mind that support brokers are certified by the Developmental Disability Administration directly. Other vendors, providers, particularly coordinators of community services and DDA providers, are subject to other rules and regulations based on the service they provide. So coordinators of community services agencies, provider agencies, have contracts with the department, and they are subject to those contracts. DDA providers are subject to the roles and responsibilities that they have as well. So we hear you about vendors. I think we will continue to work on making sure that all people who provide Medicaid services provide them correctly and well to people. But keep in mind that support brokers are specifically certified by the department, and that's why there's a code of conduct.
Right. And thank you, Irene, for sharing that. That was also shared, I think, during Tuesday's webinar. And we're absolutely open and interested in, stakeholders' thoughts related to having a standardized code of conduct. So thank you so much for sharing that. If we can go to Paulette. Paulette, can you share your one question related to support brokers?
Yes, this is my one question. The support broker role, as it's been presented in the current webinars that have been recently conducted, and I'm referring to on slide 49. It appears that the support broker role has been limited. Now, and this is just to confirm, has the support broker role been limited to the employer providing employer HR type services, and is not can no longer provide service and activities related to any other purposes or any other processes within the self-direction, the self-direction program, individual self-direction program, as support brokers previously were able to do.
Yeah, Paula, thank you for sharing your question, or maybe it's more of a comment, or both. I am happy to meet with you and further discuss a little bit more. We've shared today, and we have in the amendment, the scope of support broker services. And so I would need to understand from you more about what you're referring to in terms of other types of services, so that we can be very clear and on the same page. So thank you so much for sharing that. And again, happy to meet with you. All right, Eric, if we can go to our next topic, which is going to be related to employee benefits.
All right, we'll get started on our section regarding employee benefits. Next slide. You have the option to use cost savings or unallocated funds to offer benefits to your employees. Benefits are not required for employees unless they are required by law. Next slide. Allowable benefits include mileage reimbursement, training wages, training costs, paid time off, holiday pay, and health insurance premium reimbursement. Next slide. Mileage reimbursement. You can choose to pay your employees for providing transportation to you while they are working and providing you another waiver service, such as community development services or personal supports. Mileage reimbursement can be given to employees when they are in a vehicle with you and waiver services are happening. It's important to remember that mileage reimbursement is not a waiver service, but a benefit to employees who are already providing a waiver service. Mileage reimbursement can be paid up to the federal mileage reimbursement rate per mile. In 2025, the mileage reimbursement limit is 70 cents per mile. Mileage reimbursement may only be provided within your community. Your community is where you live, work, shop, and regularly spend your days. Next slide. You can choose to pay your employees for hours worked in training for you. Training wages may be paid at a wage at or below the employee's regular hourly wage. If training wages are used by an employee That week of work for that employee, including hours worked and training hours, may not go over 40 hours. Next slide. You can choose to pay for the training that you require your employees to attend. Training should be specific to your disability needs or be required by the waiver services, such as cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, first aid, the MANT system, the Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators, ACRE training, the Certified Employment Support Professional, CESP training, and Medication Technician Training Program. Next slide. Pay time off. You can choose to pay employees for time off. Pay time off can include vacation leave, sick leave, personal days, bereavement leave, or paid holidays. If paid time off is used by an employee, that week of work for that employee, including their hours worked and paid time off hours, may not exceed 40 hours. They may not go over 40 hours. Cash payouts of accrued or earned paid time off are not allowed. Next slide. Holiday pay. Now, you can choose to pay employees a higher rate for working for you on holidays. So let's be clear here. Holiday pay is when an employee works for you on a holiday and they get paid a higher rate because they're working on a holiday. Holiday wages may not go over the reasonable and customary wage rate for that service provided. Next slide. Health insurance reimbursement. You can choose to reimburse your employees for health insurance premium payments. Reimbursements may only be made to health insurance coverage for the employee. Coverage for spouses, children, and other family members cannot be reimbursed. Only policies purchased directly by the employee qualify for this reimbursement. Next slide. The following do not qualify for health insurance premium reimbursement: retirement plan health policies, Medicaid and Medicare policies, policies provided by another employer, including those purchased by unions, and policies provided by a former employer, including Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act policies, or COBRA. Next slide. This is very important, so I'm going to say it twice. Any policies that have been previously reimbursed for employees that do not meet the previous standards that I just shared may continue to be reimbursed. This is a change, and we want to make sure this is clear. Any policies that have been previously reimbursed for employees that do not meet these standards may continue to be reimbursed. The DDA will work with stakeholders to create a transition plan for reimbursed employee health benefits to meet these new standards. Now, participants who want to offer new health insurance premium reimbursements must follow the standards. So that's new employees and new policies and standards. I'll turn it back over. Oh, I've got one more. I apologize. Next slide. Next slide, Eric. Great. Beginning in your next plan, if you offer benefits, you will need to submit your employee handbook with your person-centered plan. So that's important. So beginning in your next plan year, if you offer benefits, you will need to submit your employee handbook with your person-centered plan. Sample and template employee handbooks are available on the DDA website for review, and we do review those items in the Self-Directed Services training series. Beginning on October 6, 2025, all employee benefits should meet the reasonable and customary standard, with the exception of the health benefits that were previously reimbursed that I shared in the last slide. Now I'll turn it back over to Rhonda for questions.
Thank you, Christy, so much. And so now we're going to look at questions specifically related to benefits. And again, just to restate something that's very important that Rick opened the questions with, is that any health insurance policies that had been previously reimbursed for employees that do not meet the new standards will be reimbursed. The DDA will be working with stakeholders to create a transition plan for the employee health insurance benefits to meet the new standards. And we are working with and communicating with our financial management and counseling service providers to let them know this so that they can pay or reimburse on current policies. So a few additional questions we have, Christy. One relates to transportation and mileage reimbursement, specifically when going to medical appointments, and asking if that is covered under this or a different service from Medicaid, and will that be clarified in the manual?
Yes. Transportation to and from medical appointments is available under other services. So they're not available within mileage reimbursement, and that will be clear in the manual.
Yeah, so Medicaid does have a service called non-emergency medical transportation that is available to all participants. And so that would be something to further look at and explore. Christy, we have another question related to benefits, and particularly related to vendors. If you use a vendor, do vendors get benefits?
That's a great question. If you use a vendor or a DDA provider, they do not receive benefits. They are paid at a rate that would cover any of those costs. And health insurance or benefits in general are only available to employees of participants.
Great, thank you. Another person notes that you said that some of the training that could be covered would be first aid course. And so the person is asking if they can pay for an employee's first aid course. So a parent paying for an employee's first aid course, could they get reimbursed? Do you want to share a little bit about how payments for training should be done through the FMCS?
I'll actually leave that to you. If you could share a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. So for training, if there's training that you're going to pay for, you would want to coordinate with the financial management counseling service provider who could help to pay for that cost so that you're not putting money out of your own pocket for that training. It should come from the budget. And that's where the financial management counseling service provider comes into play and can support in that. Christy, you talked about training wages in terms of some of the benefits too. So can a person be paid for training while another direct support professional is being paid and teaching the new person?
I would need to see exactly what is happening, and that would need to be included in the handbook. And we would need to review that person-specific issue in the plan.
Yeah, thank you. And so people can get paid while they're doing training, but that would need to be in the handbook. And so we would need some more details about the specific situation. So Christy, you were talking about transportation, and you mentioned that mileage could be reimbursed for transportation, provided that the service was being provided while the waiver services are happening. And so they want to understand, what does this mean? Does it mean transportation to and from the community activity is not reimbursed? Can you talk about a little bit more about transportation and the types of services like personal supports and community development, where the service is being provided and transportation is part of that?
Absolutely. So transportation services is its own waiver service. So if a person needs support to get from places that they need to be, that service is available to them if they have that assessed need. Mileage reimbursement is specific to when a service is already happening. So I'm working with my personal support employee, and then we go to the gym and we come back. That transportation to the gym and back with my personal support person is mileage reimbursement.
Great, thank you. So we're gonna go to a couple people online and call on some people who haven't had an opportunity to ask their question yet. Eric, can we go to John? John, are you able to ask your question? Eric, if we're having challenges with John. Oh, hello, John.
Rhonda, it looks like he's unable to unmute. So if you want to, that's first.
Okay, let's go to Linda then, please. Good morning, Linda.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, good morning, Linda. Do you have a question about benefits?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I have a quick question in regards to healthcare benefits. My first question is in regards to the handbook. I think Fellow requires an agreement to reimburse individuals for healthcare. Does the handbook, the changes to providing the handbook, change that requirement?
Yeah, what a great question, Linda. Christy, can you talk about first what is an employee handbook and who creates that? And what a few things about where they could view information about it and any other kind of highlight details you'd like to share.
Absolutely. So an employee handbook is created by the person who self-directs their services as the employer of record. They can do so with the support of a support broker or other team members. The employee handbook really is a document for the participant and their employees. It can outline a variety of expectations that the participant may have for their employees. But for our requirements at the DDA, we need the specifics regarding how benefits will be provided, because we want to ensure and make sure that participants who are employers are providing benefits in a way that is equitable or fair across all their employees that they have. So that is what that is. We have some sample and template agreements on the website, but of course participants and their teams can create documents in any way that they'd like that include those policies. An agreement with the financial management and counseling services provider is a little bit different. It might meet the same requirement, but to be clear, the employee handbook really is a document for the person and their employees.
Great, thank you, Christy. All right, let's take Nina's question, please. Nina's question.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Can employees not receive holiday pay for holidays, specifically all those Monday holidays that they would have worked but did not work due to the holiday? That's the way we've been using holiday pay. And
yeah, what a great
it's flagged, so I'm not clear about that because you're
Sure.
only defining it as pay when the employee works on a holiday, but in our case, it's when the employee does not work on a holiday.
Yeah, Christy, do you want to talk a little bit about holiday pay in terms of what we mean?
Yeah, it does sound like what you're saying is paid time off. So if employees are not working on a holiday and they're going to get paid, that is considered paid time off. We're considering holiday pay the differential. So when someone works on a holiday that the participant determines, they can receive a higher rate to compensate them for that.
And the higher rate is not required by the program. It's just one of the options that the participant can consider based on their funding and budget. So that's a really great question. So we really appreciate you sharing that. There are several questions related to what would be limits in terms of reimbursement for health insurance and other things. And so the DDA is looking into that. And as more information becomes available related to limits that would be considered reasonable customaries for reimbursement, et cetera, we will be sharing that information. So thank you so much for your questions. Let's go to our next section, which is service provider updates.
All right, service provider updates. Next slide. So, beginning on October 6, 2025, emergency medical technician or EMT certifications meet the waiver requirement for first aid and CPR certifications. This means that employees may use their EMT certifications for first aid and cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Next slide. Beginning in your next plan year, if you receive services from a vendor or DDA provider, you will need to submit your written agreement with them with your person-centered plan. Sample and template agreements are available on the DDA website, and we review how those agreements can be made in the Self-Directed Services Training Series. Next slide. All right, this is another important section, so I just want to say that this is important. Beginning October 6th, the financial management and counseling services providers will make payments for waiver services easier by directly purchasing approved services, goods, and other items outlined in the person-centered plan. Each financial management and counseling services provider is an organized healthcare delivery system. That means that they have the ability to buy services for participants directly. Next slide. As of October 6, 2025, financial management and counseling services providers will take on the responsibility of directly purchasing authorized waiver services, including assistive technology, environmental assessments and modifications, participant education, training, and advocacy, individual and family directed goods and services requests, recruitment and advertising, respite care, including respite camp, and transportation services, including public transit, taxi, and ride sharing. Next slide. This new process makes sure that the financial management and counseling services providers, as organized healthcare delivery systems, are supporting participants by directly managing the receipt of authorized services and making sure providers are qualified. This is important. This process must begin with any new service, good, or item that needs to be bought for a participant on or after October 6th, 2025. This means that the financial management and counseling services providers may not reimburse family members or other team members for any services, including the services listed in the last slide after October 6th. I'm going to read that again because it's important. This means that the financial management and counseling services providers may not reimburse family members or other team members for services, including those listed that I shared in the last slide. We encourage everyone to submit any older payments for reimbursement as soon as possible before October 6th. But this process must begin with any new service, good or item, that is needed to be bought for a participant on or after October 6th. All right, next slide. I'll hand it over to Rhonda to facilitate some questions regarding that section.
Great. Thank you, Christy, for sharing us updates related to service providers. We have a question related to the vendor and provider agreements. And you had shared with us beginning in the next plan year for the person, if they receive services from a vendor or a DDA provider, they're going to need to submit that written agreement with their person-centered plan. And you talked about sample and templates of written agreements. Can you talk again about where they could find those?
Absolutely. I'll actually pin that comment in the chat, but on our DDA website with our self-directed services training series. Right after that training series, we have several links that point to all of the resources that are available, including samples and templates of each of those. So the handbook and provider and vendor agreements.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy. Can you share again? So people are asking about, the goods and services and should they be paying for those and try to get reimbursement. Can you review that again in terms of, the FMCS's supports and the reasons why they're there to support in purchasing those goods and services?
Absolutely. So Eric, if we can go to slide 71, I'll leave that slide up that includes those lists of the services that will be directly purchased by the financial management and counseling services providers. So what is important to note is financial management and counseling services providers are organized healthcare delivery systems, which means that they have the ability to buy services directly for participants. So in order to make it easier for people to get access to those things, they will purchase them directly. We've got those services listed here.
Yep. And just another reminder, if we could go to I guess it's slide 72. Christy, can you review with us again?
Yeah.
If a family member has paid for something, a goods or services, yesterday, last week, etc., what happens with that, and when does the new process come into play where we're not going to be reimbursing?
Absolutely. So October 6th is really important here. So if any good, service, or item has already been purchased and approved and purchased for a person based on our current standards, that can be reimbursed. The financial management and counseling services will be reimbursed. But this process must begin with any new service, good, or item that needs to be bought for a participant on or after October 6th. So they can't reimburse after October 6th for anything that was purchased on or after October 6th. So don't purchase things after October 6th is the alert.
Yeah, and work with your team and the financial management counseling services provider. Let them know what service you've been approved for, what item you're looking for that's been approved. And then they can help to facilitate that with you. So we really want to support those efforts. The FMCS, may have different processes, so you definitely want to work directly with your FMCSs. So let's take a couple. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm seeing a lot of questions on specific services. So on slide 71, and you have access to the training, there is that list. And I want to pick special attention to individual and family goods and services. So anything that's requested using the individual and family directed goods and services request form will need to be purchased directly by the FMCS after October 6th.
Thank
So
you,
I saw
Christy.
a lot of similar questions. I wanted to say that out loud.
Thank you. Let's go to some of our hands. So let's start with Lisa.
Hi, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, and thank you for your presentation. Would you please clarify for us the logistics for a respite camp provider to be paid for a summer camp session?
Sure. And again, you'll want to coordinate with your financial management and counseling services provider. But if the camp meets the qualification requirements for the waiver program, you would then want to share the selection with the financial management counseling services provider. They will verify, as they will do for any of these purchases, that the item has been approved and meets the qualification requirements for that service, and then they can send the payment to the camp. Again, the financial management and counseling services providers would facilitate that. So thank you so much for sharing your question. Let's go to Sherry next, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Sherry.
My question is about, I guess, training for employees, like CPR training. So you're saying now that the FMCS will have to prepay for that training for a person to sign up to get the CPR first aid training, that the employee can't schedule it and pay for it and then get reimbursed for it? I just see scheduling issues with that and getting things done in a timely manner.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts related to that. We really appreciate your opinions and thoughts related to that. But yeah, what we are talking about today is really supporting with the funding being authorized in the budget, that the person does, if they select that the FMCS would facilitate the payment for that. So again, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and perspective on that. So we're going to go to our next section. And the next section relates to relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians who provide services.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's get into relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians who provide waiver services. Next slide. Before discussing the updates related to relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians, I'm going to share some of the definitions for each role and go over some changes that have been made. The definition of relative has been updated in the DDA-operated waiver. That's the Community Pathways Waiver. Relative is defined as a natural or adoptive parent, step-parent, grandparent, step-grandparent, child, stepchild, sibling, step-sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, or nephew. The bolded terms of grandparent, step-grandparent, stepchild, step-sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, and nephew have been added to the relative definition. Next slide. Legally responsible persons means a person who, according to the rules in Maryland, has a legal duty to take care of someone else. This can be a parent of someone who is under 18 years old, whether they are born to them or adopted, a person who is officially responsible for the well-being of another person as their legal guardian, or someone who is legally in charge of taking care of a minor, like a foster parent or a family member chosen by a court. This definition has not changed. Next slide. Legal guardian is either a natural or adoptive parent of a participant under the age of 18, or an individual who has been appointed by a court under a court order as guardian of the person. This definition has not changed. Next slide. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide the following waiver services: community development services, employment services, ongoing job supports and follow-along supports, personal support services, support broker services, and respite care services. To provide these services, the relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians must meet and follow the Medicaid waiver program rules. For example, having first aid and CPR training or completing their timesheets correctly. We will review these further in detail in the next slide. Next slide. Community development services. These services provide direct support so that you can be more connected in your community. Staff will support you to develop or manage or maintain social and other skills you need. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide community development services, and this will not change with the waiver updates. Next slide. Employment services. Ongoing job supports. This service supports you when you start a new job. And follow-along supports. This service supports you when you know how to complete your daily jobs, but need someone other than your supervisor to talk to you when you have questions or concerns. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide ongoing job supports and follow-along supports, and this will not change in the waiver update. Next slide. Personal support services. This service helps you with different kinds of support needs if you live in your own home or your family's home and would like to improve your independent living skills. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide personal support services, and this will not change in the waiver updates. Next slide. Support broker services. A support broker is a person who helps you with the employer side of self-directing your services. They provide information and advice for you to help you make informed decisions related to managing the staff who provide your services, and help you to stay within your budget. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide support broker services, and this will not change with the waiver updates. Please note that when a relative, legally responsible person, or a legal guardian provides support broker services to you, no other relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian may provide a waiver service to you. Next slide. This service, respite care services. This service is short-term support that gives you and your family or other primary caregiver a break from daily routines. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may provide respite care services. Respite care services cannot be provided by a primary caregiver, and that is a person who has a main responsibility for providing care to someone. Next slide. Now we're going to review some additional waiver services where relatives may provide support, but they have to be relatives who are not legally responsible persons or legal guardians. So relatives who are not legally responsible persons or legal guardians may provide the following waiver services: day-to-day administrative supports, living caregiver supports, and transportation services. Next slide. Day-to-day administrative supports. We covered this in an earlier section, but this service can provide you assistance with household management and scheduling medical appointments. Household management means scheduling house maintenance and repairs, scheduling snow removal, and lawn care. Relatives who are not legally responsible persons or legal guardians may provide day-to-day administrative supports. Next slide. Living caregiver supports. A living caregiver is someone who provides support to you and lives with you in your home that you own or rent. Siblings may provide living caregiver supports, and this will not change in the waiver updates. Just a note, when we say living caregiver here, we mean the living caregiver waiver service. Living caregiver exceptions for electronic visit verification, or EVV, are different, and they're different than this waiver service and not what we're talking about here. Next slide. Transportation services. This service helps you independently get to community activities. Your community is where you live, work, shop, or regularly spend your days. The service is provided based on the assessed need for the service in your person-centered plan. Beginning on October 6, 2025, legally responsible persons and legal guardians may not provide transportation services. Relatives who are not legally responsible persons or legal guardians may provide transportation services. Next slide. So we covered a lot there, so I want to go over what has changed in these waiver services. So for day-to-day administrative supports, beginning on October 6th, legally responsible persons and legal guardians may not provide day-to-day administrative supports. For transportation supports, beginning on October 6, 2025, legally responsible persons and legal guardians may not provide transportation supports. Next slide. Nursing support services. This service supports a registered nurse licensed in Maryland to provide nursing consultation, healthcare management, and nursing delegation services. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may not provide nursing support services. Nursing support services may be provided by employees, vendors, and DDA providers who are not relatives, legally responsible persons, or legal guardians to the participant. Next slide. Participant education, training, and advocacy supports. This service covers the cost of a training program, workshop, or conference you need to attend to learn more about how to develop self-advocacy skills, exercise your civil rights and development skills needed to control and be responsible for your services. Relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may not provide this waiver service. This is really because the service is to pay for a cost of a training program that could be paid for by a DDA provider, including the financial management and counseling services provider as the organized healthcare delivery system that we talked about in the last section. All right, I'm going to send it over to Rhonda for questions.
Great, thank you, Christy. Christy, people are asking about the definitions of relative, legally responsible person, and legal guardian. Can you review that one more time with us?
Absolutely. And in the next section, we'll take these questions and then we'll go over some more details related in this section that might answer some of the questions that we'll see. So the definition of relative has been updated to be a natural or adoptive parent, step-parent, grandparent, step-grandparent, child, stepchild, sibling, step-sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, or nephew.
Yeah. Great, Christy. And for that definition, right, so some people are also asking a couple additional questions. Brothers, sisters, mothers, etc., would also include in-laws. So we would consider in-laws to fall under that category too. We had another question, Christy, and the question is, do family members have to show that they are qualified to provide ongoing and follow-along job supports?
Absolutely. All employees, whether they're a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian, must meet all the waiver requirements for the waiver service. So it is important that regardless of that status as a family member, you are showing that you meet all of the training requirements.
Great. So Just going through some of these, it looks like are being answered online, so that's great. Someone is asking if we could put the last slide back up, which was related to participant education, training, and advocacy supports. And basically what that service is, again, is paying for the cost of training, workshops, and conferences. So it's paying for things. And given that, we have expanded it for our organized healthcare delivery system providers to provide it, and therefore wouldn't be provided by an employee or therefore a relative legal guardian or legally responsible person. We have some questions about family of staff forms. That's going to come up pretty soon. So why don't we go to a couple hands that are raised? And so let's see. Our first one looks like it's from BA.
BA Chase, you have received a request to unmute yourself.
Good morning.
Rhonda, it looks like that person is having some challenges. You want to go to the next person?
Can we go to Deidre next, please?
Good morning. I do have a question regarding slide 88 about transportation supports that you're saying that legally responsible people can't provide that. I want to make sure I'm clear that transportation supports are not the same as a mileage reimbursement. Transportation supports are more specific. Can you clarify?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Transportation supports are different than mileage reimbursement that is available as a benefit to staff under services like personal supports, community development services, and other type of services. So you are correct. Thank you for sharing your question. Can we go to Trevi? Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong.
I got a question about transportation services. So many people who don't drive, if they have a job and they're planning to go to work, to and from work, or if they're going shopping or other things, do you provide that for them?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, so we do have a standalone service called Transportation Supports that supports individuals who are independently going to and from work, in their community, those type of things that you've shared. If the person needs to have a support staff with them, that would be mileage reimbursement. So yes, there is a service called Transportation Support that can support individuals in accessing their communities. Thank you so much for that question. Why don't we go to our next section, and then we'll come back to some more questions.
Yeah, I do believe this section here will answer a lot of the questions that we received. So up to 40 hours per week. So relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may work up to 40 hours per week for you across all waiver services. This is not a change in our standard. This standard applies to all relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians who provide waiver services to the participant, including working directly for the participant as an employee, working as an independent vendor, and working for another vendor or DDA provider. Currently, the Family as Staff Overtime Request Form is used to request when a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian can work over that 40 hours per week. But on October 6, 2025, that Family as Staff form will no longer be needed. Next slide. If you have paid staff that are not relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians, those staff members can work for you over 40 hours in a week. If you want that staff to work more than 40 hours, then you just need to make sure that you have the funding and the hours in your budget to cover the increased cost of services. Next slide. Let's talk about the rollout of updates to the Family as Staff form. So if someone who provides you waiver services now meets the new definition of relative, you will need to update the Family as Staff form the next time you submit a person-centered plan. So in this update to the Family as Staff form the updated form must be used for any person-centered plans after October 6, 2025. For all person-centered plans, initial, revised, and annual. Next slide. Now, this also, I'll try to read this twice because I need to be clear about this too. So if a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian currently provides you nursing support services or participant education, training, and advocacy supports, they may continue to do so until your next plan year or January 1st, 2026, whichever comes last. So if your new plan starts in November and you have a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian providing you nursing support services, then they can continue to do so until January 1st. But if your plan year starts after January 1st, that's the new plan year is when you'll need to find a vendor, employee, or provider to provide you nursing support services that isn't a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian. So we wanted to try to be flexible there. If legally responsible persons or legal guardians currently provide you day-to-day administrative supports or transportation services, they also may continue to do so until your next plan year or January 1st, 2026, whichever comes first. Now, keep in mind that at your next plan, your day-to-day administrator has to meet the scope of that service after October 6th still, like we talked about. So there's some flexibility in who can provide it, but how they will provide it will change at your next plan year. I'm going to turn it over for questions. I'm sure we'll have a few on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. So just to recap, Christy shared with us that relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians may work up to 40 hours per week across all their services. That includes if that relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian is both an employee or a vendor or works for a provider. So it's regardless of how they're providing it, it's the 40-hour limit. That 40-hour limit has been in the waiver program for some time. And what the change is we removed an exception process saying that the DDA could approve above that. And so we're just going to maintain the core standard of up to 40 hours a week. Because of that, the Family as Staff overtime request form will not be needed after October 6th when the new standard comes into play. Because we're getting some questions about why the form would not be needed. Please note, if you have paid staff that are not relatives, legally responsible persons, or legal guardians. So if your staff doesn't meet any of those standards or those categories, those staff members can work more than 40 hours per week. If you want the staff to work more than 40 hours per week, you must make sure you have funding and hours in your budget to cover the increased cost. And again, this would be for staff that do not meet the criteria, do not meet the meaning of relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians. The other thing that Christy had shared with us, if you want someone who provides you waiver services who now meets the definition of relatives, then you will need to update your family of staff form the next time you submit your person-centered plan. And the updated family of staff form must be used after October 6th. We have a webinar coming up on October 1st where we will be going over the new updated forms. So we'll look at a couple questions that we received. So one question is, so are you saying that family of staff cannot have overtime if an emergency occurs? So that's a great question. Just a reminder that all participants, regardless of service delivery model, should have two really important documents and plans. One is referred to as a backup plan. A backup plan is a plan that you would use in the event that your staff is unable to come for the day, for whatever reason they call out. You have a backup strategy. Some individuals call other staff to see if they're available. Some individuals will have backup staff already identified. Some individuals actually use a DDA provider as a backup strategy. It's really going to be individual specific, and the person with the support of their team should continue to think through and develop that plan. So in the event that something like that happens, you're able to know what action to take. The other really important thing for teams to talk about and support the participant would be for emergency situations. Emergency situations could be health related, it could be snow related, it could be electricity goes out, something happens to the home, etc. So it's important for all of us to have strategies and backup plans and emergency plans so that in the event that something would happen, we already have figured out what our plan will be and we will just follow it. So going through a few additional questions, we had the questions related to the overtime form not being needed anymore. Just trying to get caught up with some of the questions. Question about whether participant agreements would need to be updated. Christy, your thoughts on participant agreements being updated if they have new team members?
So yeah, anytime that a new team member is added, so if someone is deciding to designate a representative, they do need to submit a new participant agreement. So participant agreements, we'll talk about actually in the next section, but they are required at every plan, including revised plans, and when anything changes in the team. So if something has changed in the team, a new participant agreement would be required. Yes.
Great. We're getting a variety of different questions on different topics. So let's go to the people who have raised their hand. Can we go to Deb first, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Deb. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a question for us?
I do, thank you so much. So from the DDA's perspective, ideally, who on the team should be responsible for doing payroll, scheduling staff, managing medical appointments, and just in general completing DDA paperwork for the participant if the participant is not able to perform these tasks independently? Thank you.
Yeah, what a great question. And I'm going to share some general thoughts and happy to connect on an individual case, because each individual situation and supports they need will vary. I want to first state that participants can make their own decisions and can complete a variety of tasks on their own independently. And we want to continue to recognize that and support that not all individuals need a high level of supports. because they are independent in their own independent decision-making and responsibilities. So first we want to acknowledge that. Our coordinators of community services help to facilitate the development of the plan. They also support the participant related to the initial application to include the Medicaid waiver application process. They can support the participant with their financial redetermination process, which is an annual process that some participants must complete in terms of submitting bank statements and other documents, financial documents, to demonstrate they continue to meet the Medicaid financial eligibility criteria for the waiver program. We have support brokers that support participants with kind of what we would call human resource tasks. So they can give them information and assistance related to interviewing questions and hiring practices and developing those handbooks and a variety of things. They walk alongside the participant and support them in that, give them advice and assistance and can mentor them with that and provide some supports as allocated or noted in the DDA waiver applications. There are financial management and counseling services providers, and they provide a variety of supports, including criminal background checks for direct supports that are hired, completing tax-related forms, such as submitting documents to the Internal Revenue Services to establish the participant as an employer of record, and getting a employer identification number. They pay timesheets and invoices. They track funding and budgets and have portals for people to access. So there's a variety of different supports there. In addition to those kind of core supports, Medicaid state plan services, for which all waiver participants have access to. There are a variety of services and supports available there, including a special needs coordinator for health insurance, coordinating appointments and things like that. So there's a variety of different resources available there. In addition, we know individuals have other supports, whether it's a legally responsible person or legal guardian, a power of attorney, et cetera. So it just really varies based on the individual, but there's a variety of services and supports available through the Medicaid waiver programs, in addition to other community natural or legal supports. So thank you so much for asking your question. Let's go to Jamila.
Hi, my question is, how is it determined where an individual regularly spends their day in SHOP? For some people, this may be seasonal. They may regularly spend their day somewhere during certain periods of the year or for certain recreational activities. How is that determination made, and can you give examples of what that looks like?
Sure. So regularly spends their day would be what you do regularly, daily, throughout the year. It wouldn't be seasonal from my perspective, but happy to connect with you, or you can reach out to the regional office if you have specific situations or examples you'd like to share. So thank you for sharing that. And let's take one more. Can we go to Miss Durant? Adelica?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, I'm hearing of all the supports that are provided for the participant, but who do we go to for supports for, say we have an appeal for something DDA decided not to pay for? Who do we contact in reference, just to follow up in general?
Yeah, what a great question. There is the right to appeal decisions made by the department. We have been sharing in our communications information related to an online appeal form that's available on the department website. You can absolutely reach out to legal advice related to that, or other supports, family members, team members related to that for the appeal process. So thank you so much for sharing your question. Let's go to our next section where we're going to provide some updates related to self-directed service forms.
All right, updates to self-directed services forms. Next slide. The DDA has updated the forms that you use during planning and self-directed services. We've updated the participant agreement, the self-directed services budget sheet, the budget modification form, and the family and staff form. Next slide. So for the participant agreement, as a reminder, the participant agreement is required for all people who self-direct. We've updated the participant agreement to note that if you are under the age of 18, you must name a designated representative to help manage your services, which is option 2 on the form. Everyone will need to use this new form for your next plan year or immediately if something changes in your situation. Next slide. The self-directed services budget sheet. The self-directed services budget sheet has been updated to be easier to understand and use. You'll use this new budget sheet the next time you create or change your budget. Next slide. Budget modification form. The budget modification form has been updated to be clearer. It now shows that the individual and family directed goods and services are limited to $5,000 per year, and you'll need to use this updated form the next time you make a budget change. Next slide. Our family and staff form must be completed by every person who self-directs. This form is used to show whether or not relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians provide waiver services to you. You must update this form during your next plan year or if something has changed. Next slide. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, we also have 2 new forms for self-directed services. One is called the Day-to-Day Administrative Supports Decision Tree. This is a new form that helps you and your team decide what kinds of help you may need from day-to-day administrative supports. The new form is required during the next year if you're requesting day-to-day administrative supports. The second is called the Self-Directed Services Orientation Checklist. The checklist will help coordinators of community services show that the Self-Directed Services orientation has taken place for people who are required to attend it. We'll now open it up for questions regarding new and updated forms. So,
Thank you, Christy. So, question, Christy, do the new forms need to be used for plans effective after 10/6 that have already been approved?
Not if they've already been approved, no.
Thank you. And when will these forms be available, and when will you be sharing some additional information? Can you talk about the webinar on October 1st?
October 1st, we're going to have a webinar that goes over all of these new forms in detail. We'll go over the forms and they will be available then.
Great. And the forms will also be included in the SDS manual, Christy?
Correct, yes.
Excellent. We also have a question related to supported decision-making forms and when it's required. So just to clarify, we shared on Tuesday that we are going to be working with stakeholders to develop a substitute judgment process that we have been talking about in the various waiver programs. And our initial proposal in the waiver application was to require a supported decision-making form We have removed that requirement, and we have shared that in some recent webinars. We will be working with stakeholders to develop that substitute judgment process and forms associated with that. But just to note for everybody that there is training that's available from other advocacy organizations related to supported decision making, and a supported decision making agreement can be created with the person and the people that they are seeking those supports. So it's a really great opportunity and should be explored by all. And those resources are available from other advocacy organizations that can help. So let's look at the questions online. So we have Nina. Nina, do you have a question related to the new or updated forms?
I'm not sure if this is relevant to that. I'm just concerned. CCSs were listed as the most, as the person that could help a participant whose parents have passed or are unable to do it with redetermination forms, which have to do with financial information, tax forms and account statements and account numbers. CCSs rarely last more than a year in this job. So over the participant's lifetime, sensitive financial information could be shared with a lot of people. I have had problems with redetermination forms with submitting them and have asked the CCS for help. The CCS help consisted of emailing my financial information to the EDD. If I had known they were going to do that, I would have traveled to Baltimore myself to give it in. So I don't know if the CCS is the best person to provide this kind of help. But this is more of a comment than a question, but maybe you have some response, some suggestions of who can do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comment and some of your questions related to that. Just to be clear, the coordinator of community services can offer assistance in those processes. The participant and their legally representatives would be the only ones that could access the bank statements and those type of things, but the CCS can help to facilitate the submission of those if you provide them to them through the secured system. And as their role as case managers, they are required to comply with privacy and standards related to security. We appreciate your comments about your experience, and we will continue to work with our Medicaid partners and coordinators of community services and all stakeholders to try to support the redetermination process. So thank you so much for that. I see that we've got a couple questions about substitute judgment. Please note that what I'm sharing with you today is that we are going to be working with stakeholders to further develop the substitute judgment process and documents as required by the federal government as a safeguard. So coordinators of community services do not need to be researching substitute judgment. We will be working with stakeholders and providing additional guidance. The substitute judgment and reporting form process related to the use of legally responsible persons, legal guardians, and relatives would begin in April of 2026. So more information will come related to that. Just looking to see, and we have another hand. Can we open Nina's mic, please? Nina, do you have a question related to self-directed services forms?
Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning again.
Good morning. I'm sorry, my hand has been raised for a long time, and so the question I had was really to find out if the budget for our clients can include employee benefits, directed goods and services, administrative supports if a vendor is being used.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer from my perspective, the way I'm understanding your question, if a vendor is used, they're not considered an employee, and so they would not be provided benefits. So benefits are provided when the participant hires an employee directly, and they're the employer of record. A vendor is a different type of provider, and so benefits would not be provided. Thank you for sharing your question. Let's go to our next section, please.
All right. The section is regarding termination from the self-directed services delivery model. Next slide. So you may be removed from the self-directed services delivery model if you do not follow labor laws, regulations, policy, and guidance, including going over the authorized hours and funding that you have been authorized for. Next slide. Before terminating you from the self-directed services delivery model, the DDA may require you to review your rights and responsibilities in a meeting and or require you to complete a corrective action plan. That is all for this section, so I'll turn it over to Rhonda for questions.
Great. So just a reminder, Christy just shared with us, basically their participants can be removed from the model if they're not following the rules. The rules include the labor laws, state and federal regulations, policies, and guidance. And what we have shared in the amendment, because that is not new, individuals can be removed from the model for any of those reasons. And what the amendment change is, what's new, is that before we would remove someone, we may first require a meeting to review the person's rights and responsibilities under the self-directed services, and or we could require a corrective action plan to address the rules that they're not following, to make sure that there's a strategy for them to follow the rules related to the program. So a couple questions. One question is, what might a corrective action plan entail? Additional training, educations, etc. That's a great question. Yes, absolutely. A corrective action plan could be that the person plans to review the self-directed training series and have their team review them all. It really will be specific to what the rule that's not being followed and would be individualized, but those are some good examples. Christy, any additional thoughts you had related to that?
Oh, that is it. That's great.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, you know, maybe they would review training materials from their financial management and counseling service provider. Maybe there's something going on with the billing process, or, you know, the electronic visit verification requirement. So it's really going to be specific to the person and what's going on. Let's see. One question is can a service be terminated if not utilized for multiple years? So if someone's requesting a service for multiple years but not using it, would they be terminated, or the service be terminated? That's a great question. If services are not being utilized, then we would be asking what would be the assessed need if they haven't been used. So something to consider as the team's looking at the services and the considerations. Okay, so looking for other questions related to removal from the service model. One individual is asking if the financial management and counseling services make sure participants don't go over their approved service hours. So that's a great question. The financial management counseling services does track some of the funding and the budget expenditures. That is also provided to the participant, and the coordinator of community services have access. Some individuals utilize a support broker to also support them in terms of monitoring their budget utilization. But in addition to that, participants can approve or authorize services to be provided, even when they're not in their budget. And that would be the overutilization of services. And that would be one of the rules that would be considered not being followed.
I have a note about that too, Rhonda. Sure. In all person-centered plans, particularly in self-directed services, schedules are required. It is really important that participants follow the schedule that they've put in their person-centered plan. Of course, we know that things change. If things change significantly for longer than a day or two, it is really important to change that plan and update it based on the changed needs. So, including that schedule is really important in the plan, and following that schedule is very important to make sure that you stay within your plan, your budget and hours.
Great. We have a comment question to ask the financial management and counseling services agencies to add units used on budget reports. So happy to share that with the financial management and counseling services agencies. Another question comment seeking or suggesting more specific training on fraud and waste that the participant and self-directed staff and families can attend and reference. So that's another great suggestion. There's some questions specifically to specific financial management and counseling services providers. And so for those, we would refer you to the financial management counseling service providers because they may have different business models or business practices. And then let's see. There's a question, if a person has a plan that's in auto extend and runs out of funds while waiting for the plan to be approved, and they go over their budget, in that situation, again, the plan that would be an auto extend would be the one from the previous year. The person would need to stay within those funds and should not be seeking or accessing services in excess of their auto extend plan. Okay, let's take the question from the person who raised their hand. So Rick, do you have a question related to the removal of individuals from the self-directed model?
No, sorry, I was trying to put my hand up for the end to ask my question, and I was trying to ask at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we'll get to you in a minute. Thank you. Heather, do you have a question related to removal of people from the model?
Hi, Heather Newcomb. You have received a link and you just need to unmute yourself. Rhonda, it looks like she's dropped off if you want to go to the next person.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Smalls. There was another question about if someone is removed from the model, how long does it take before receiving notification of a hearing? If you're being removed from the model, you will receive a letter. The participant would receive a letter letting them know that and the effective date. We have shared previously, and also there's information in our manual. The coordinator of community services and the team will support the person in terms of transitioning to the provider managed model. So services and supports can continue to be provided. It would just be under the other model. In that letter that the person will get that lets them know that they're being removed, it will also include their notice of hearing or fair rights hearings, for which they can then appeal if that's their choice. So let's go ahead and go to the next few slides that we'll wrap up, and then we'll go back to the beginning with some of the questions that we have in the question box and take some additional questions online. So let's review some of the resources. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this slide is an overview of some of the additional webinars that the DDA will be conducted related to the amendment. So we have already completed a webinar related to Medicaid notices for individuals in the family supports and community supports waivers, in terms of letting them know about the Medicaid notice that they would get, letting them know that they're being changed or transitioned to the community pathways waiver. On Tuesday, we conducted our webinar called Waiver Changes in You. That included a review of all the waiver services and what changed, and some additional information that we think you will find very helpful. We encourage you to review the recordings that is posted on the DDA YouTube channel, and a link to the recordings will also be going out in the newsletter. During the self-directed services training that we did today, we've shared a variety of information. And then this afternoon, we will be having another webinar that's specifically focused on providers, so provider opportunities and requirements. So if you're interested in those topics, please feel free to join us for that. It will include information related to virtual supports, new provider qualifications, quarterly training attestations for our DDA providers, licenses and certification renewal timelines for our DDA providers, and also information related to individual providers or sole practitioners related to a few of our services. During the new and updated forms webinar, we will be sharing additional information and demonstrating how to complete the new and updated forms and guidance. A few people have put in the questions when the forms will be available, and we are, as we shared, updating the self-directed services manual that'll include the forms, and we hope to have that information out soon so that you could have that in addition to the webinar on October 1st. During the LTSS Maryland Updates webinar, we'll share information related to both the enhancements to the systems and updates that are supporting the amendment. On this slide, we also have the registration link that you can share with others. If you've registered for any one of the series, it automatically registers you for them all. So feel free to attend the ones that you're interested in, but they are available to you the entire series. Next slide, please. If you have questions or need more information, please contact your coordinator of community services or reach out to your regional office. We're here to help you and support you through this process. And we're hoping that the information that we are providing to include, we will be issuing a guide related to waiver changes in you, where we have pulled out some key information from the waiver document itself for individuals, providers, case managers, family members, all stakeholders to be able to use. From that, we also created an easy to read version of the guide that is meant to be in plain language and to support participants and families. So that's a smaller, more succinct guide. And that information will also be coming out very soon. Next slide, please. For updates and more details, we have a new webpage that we've been sharing. It's called October 2025 Waiver Changes in You. We've included the link on this page. The new webpage is also on the DDA website homepage. It can be accessed from the left panel as shown on this slide. In addition, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. So there's a link on that. The newsletter will include updates that we had shared in terms of new information and things that are going on with DDA. And as we have shared today, in addition, we are updating the self-directed services policy and manual based on the amendment and the information that we shared with you today. And again, these will be coming out soon. So now we're going to go back to some of the initial questions and go through a few of those. And then in addition, we will also take a few questions online with the remaining time. So we have a question, Christy. Will participants need to do the orientation if they are a transitioning youth who selected self-directed service model, but is waiting for the EDD or the eligibility determination approval? So they've already got their person-centered plan in and the waiver packet in, so they're just waiting for that final approval.
Yep, if the person-centered plan is already approved, they do not need to do the orientation.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, just going through. We had another question. Will it be acceptable to have families and participants while on the waiting list to have the self-directed orientation training done so they have an understanding instead of waiting on when they get on the waiver? So Christy, can you talk about the self-directed training series and how it's available to anyone, including people on the waiting list?
Definitely. So that the training series videos, not just the first 3 modules that would be included in the orientation, but all 17 of them are available right now to anyone. Now, it is important to note that we don't want teams to do that very with a lot of time in between. We want people to do the orientation and then really step into self-direction. So the orientation would still be required after the self-direction has officially been chosen. But that training is available to anybody at any time.
Great, thank you, Christy. Why don't we, we've got just a few minutes left, so let's go back to online, and Rick, who jumped on that real quick, can we have Rick's mic open, please? Rick, if you could share one question or one comment.
Thank you. In the change with the insurance recently, and I understand that you've made it so that we can keep our insurance being paid as it was. When was that changed, and is that part of the waiver? And I'm asking this because it just seems that the FMCSs decide to pay or not pay something on a whim. And my service coordinator has been working for over a week to get answers from people about different parts of this and everything else, and nobody has responded to any of those emails or gotten back to her. And it just seems like there's no definition of all of this.
Yeah, Rick, thank you for sharing that. And we are sorry to hear of the challenges that you and others have experienced related to this. So we have, received and heard from stakeholders related to this, and have been discussing that. And therefore, as we've shared today, we want to make sure that we continue to work with stakeholders and have a transition plan, a glide path for people to transition to be in compliance with the standards. The intent for the health insurance reimbursement really was for the employee to purchase them and not to be reimbursing other types of plans. And so we will be working with stakeholders to come up with a transition plan. And again, we are sorry to hear some of the challenges and apologize for any delays in terms of the information. We are working with our financial management and counseling service providers and have communicated this with them too. So they will be following up with individuals that may have had a delay or a denial related to that. So thank you for joining us today and sharing this really important topic and concern from our stakeholders. Can we go to Ashley next, please? It looks like Ashley may have just dropped. Ashley, are you available?
Rhonda, it looks like she might not be able to unmute herself. Would you like to go to the
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Smalls. I see that we're at 11:30 and we truly appreciate having this opportunity and time with you today. We know you have asked some really good questions and shared some really good comments and perspectives with us. So we do appreciate that. We hope the information has been helpful. Please be on the lookout for the information related to the guidance that we talked about, waiver changes in you, the easy read guidance, in addition to the updated self-directed services manual and policy. We wish you a great day and look forward to talking to you soon.